Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I am your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, this is going to be an episode that I've been waiting for months. We had an episode scheduled, but my dad passed, so we didn't get a chance to. And then I've been sick all week, but I was in bed till 11:30, and I'm like, I'm not missing this. I'm not missing a chance to be able to talk with this gentleman. So, guys, if you love crypto, if you love NFTs, or you don't know what the hell a crypto is, or what an NFT is, or what the future of planning finances is, this is the episode for you. My brother Seth is about to drop some knowledge. But, guys, I want to thank our sponsors. First of all, I want to thank me. I'm just joking. As you guys know, we just came out with our brand new coffee. It's called Vertical Momentum Coffee, twice as much caffeine as any other product. But I am not selling a coffee today. I'm actually giving this one away. So if you're interested in getting that coffee, just write the word cafe or coffee down below, and you'll also be eligible to join our elite newsletter, where you're going to hear stuff like this get dropped into your email once a week. So make sure you write coffee in there. And then Kurt Balish of Balish Woodworks, awesome veteran, makes amazing woodworking for your office or for your home. He actually made a cutting board for my wife for Mother's Day. Now it's the only thing she'll use. So if you love custom woodwork, check out Balish Woodworks. Guys, like I said, this is going to be a fun episode. If you have any questions about crypto, NFT, any kind of business, we're going to be dropping all kinds of knowledge. Seth, my brother, what's going on?
Going on, Richard? Vertical Momentum audience, glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time. But first, I want to give a big shout out to Robert Garcia, the Warrior Strategist. The first I ever learned from you was in the article of Shift magazine, and I was totally enamored by it, and that's why I wanted to have you on, because I think I've read that article 3 or 4 times. So I just want to say, Robert Garcia, thank you so much. So how's your day going?
It's going good. It's noon over here on the East Coast, and we're running errands around this morning, take care of nonsense, and make sure I got back here to be on the podcast. So
where are you from on the East Coast?
Say again?
Where are you from?
I grew up in Philadelphia, but I live in Ohio now.
So, okay. So what kind of little boy was Seth growing up?
What kind of little boy was Seth growing up? Boy, there's a loaded question. I was probably your typical smart ass kid, and thought he knew it all and made a lot of mistakes along the way to get to where I am. Grew up in Philadelphia, I'm in a suburbs type environment. We were about 7 miles out of 69th Street from Philadelphia. Went to a nice high school, and, had working class parents, and watched my folks, struggle with the working class lifestyle that was, living paycheck to paycheck. And we grew up in a fixer-up type home that was, it was a 100-year-old home that had a lot of structural issues. And my parents would spend their weekends, when they weren't working Monday through Friday, fixing up the house, tearing down walls, putting up new drywall, sheetrock, that kind of stuff, fixer-upper stuff. And there was a lot of effort and energy that went into that. And of course, I was Dad's helper and brought him tools and all that kind of stuff growing up as a kid, and decided I didn't want to do that. So that's a little background for me, I guess.
Now, people from Philadelphia are a different breed of people. I was actually at the Eagles game where they were pelting Santa with snowball. I was actually at that game. So people from Philly, they're kind of like people from Jersey. We're kind of a little bit left of center. So were you a good athlete? Were you good in school?
In high school, I was not. In high school, I was a C minus kind of a student. It wasn't until I joined the military and started paying for my own college where I really flipped the script and became a valedictorian kind of a student. When it mattered to my pocketbook, that's when I started paying attention. That was the big, responsibility at the end of the day, I guess, is really what the flip was for me. But as a kid, no, I wasn't. I was, your rebellious teenager. I did everything people told me not to do. Just, that was my process. Everybody went left and Seth went right, kind of a thing. It was just not follow the herd kind of a mindset. And it caused me a lot of problems. I got arrested as a teenage kid. I got, in with the wrong crowd and learned some hard lessons along the way. But that's probably what Seth needed to have in his own experience to get to where Seth is now. I learned a lot of hard lessons and I've become a lot wiser along the way. I probably could have done it smarter, but I didn't. And I'm grateful for those lessons at the same time. It's made me the man who I am today.
So now I love everybody's recruiting story because everybody's story is different. So tell me about your recruiting story.
Recruiting, meaning for the military?
Yep.
Yeah, my recruiting story. Well, there wasn't much of a story, honestly, Richard. I think, somewhere around 16, I like I said, I got into the wrong crowd. I made some mistakes as a teenager and I ended up getting arrested. Possession of marijuana, which, today, 25 years later, nobody even cares about. You can go to the gas station and buy marijuana at the gas station. In a lot of states, you can. But back then, they were frying eggs on television and drugs are bad and moms against drugs. And, it was a much different environment 25, 30 years ago. And I got in trouble and I struggled with some identity issues. And, I felt like a bad human being at that point. And there was a moment I remember staring at myself in the mirror as a kid and thinking I didn't like what I saw. And something needed to change and something needed to change drastically. And for me, I realized that, that was the military. That it was a clean cut from everything and everybody I knew in Philadelphia to jump ship and go somewhere else and start fresh. And, I don't think I'm an exception in that. I think a lot of people do that during the military for some of those reasons. Let's get a clean break. Let's get a better environment and do something with our lives. And so I called the recruiter and said, I want to join. That was nobody came and hounded me. I came and found them and said, let's do this. And in particular, again, this is my story and in my experience. I remember I was a high school kid. And then I was working at Wawa in the Northeast. If you grew up in the Northeast,
Yeah.
Wawa. I don't need to explain what I do. But I was working the 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. shift at Wawa, get a couple hours of sleep, then get back up and go to school and do my senior high school year. And, that was the schedule. But I was having one of these like 2 a.m. conversations with a coworker about the military. I was still thinking about it. I hadn't quite fully signed up yet. And we were having a conversation about, well, if you're going to do it, you might as well join the best. So I joined the Marines just for that simple reason. A lot of people think, you guys are dumb, you're bullet sponges. But there's a premium top of the line mentality that goes along with the Marines and how they carry themselves different. And the standards that they have in comparison to the other military branches is much higher. So that was my decision. That was what I went with. And that's my story.
And I love my Marines. I love the mentality. Once a Marine, always a Marine. I love that. And I also think you guys have the best uniforms ever, hands down, no questions asked. So what was it like going through basic training? Being a kid from the streets, doing things your own way, all of a sudden now having to fit in along with everybody else. Did you take to it quickly?
I did, and it came with several hard realizations for me. Right, what I didn't expect was that I had actually, after graduating high school, I went to one semester at Westchester University, which is about 45 minutes away there from downtown Philadelphia. And at that point, I still was your C- student and realized that I went to college because that was the expectation, at the time. Everybody go to college, get a job, all that stuff. And I realized very like my head was just not in college. All of a sudden I had a D in a college class and I found myself in a situation where it was like either I needed to drop out of this class so I don't end up with a D, or I'm going to have to accept the fact that even if I put a lot of effort into this, I'm probably still only going to get a C. And, so I realized I wasn't ready. And, that led to the military conversation, right? Joined the Marines, went to boot camp. decided scrubbing toilets maybe wasn't the best decision either, right? Now I was a private. I had no Boy Scout advanced rank, none of that stuff. I wasn't a valedictorian, so I started as a empty sleeve private in the Marine Corps, and I had to earn that, right? I had to earn that rank, and that meant cleaning toilets and mopping floors. And a few months of that, I decided maybe college was probably a smarter choice. And you flip back and forth through life, and life forces you to realize that some things are different and some things are important. And so I started going to college after that. Once I spent a year overseas in Japan. I did the air traffic control radar repair schools. I was in Millington, Tennessee for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months before they shut that base down, put us all on a bus and moved us down to Pensacola, Florida. We had a brand new base. That was a Navy base. We thought life was good. And then we went back out to the fleet and had to go back to work again, so some of those experiences made the impact on me that education was important. I wanted to be an officer. I wanted to advance in rank. I wanted to be a warrant officer at a certain point. My mind was going through those different phases. And the military brought that just life experience, right? I mean, everybody's got their own story and their own values, and what has brought them to where they are today. And yes, I joined the military for different reasons, and the military made me realize that other things were far more important than just being independent and bucking the crowd at every step I could. Sometimes it's smarter to work with the system and work within the system and leverage it to your benefit and everybody else's benefit. So, there's my long elevator speech on that one.
Now, how many years did you do in the military?
6 years. I spent 6 years in the Marine Corps. And let's see, I joined in 96 and got out. I was actually sitting, strangely enough, I was sitting in administration as a sergeant. At about 5 years and 10 months later, filling out my paperwork on September 11th, 2001 for my separation from the military. And it just happened to be, that news event on the television, and we watched that live, and, my butthole puckered up, and it was like, oh shit, I'm not getting out of the military. And, you know what that environment was. It was panic. It was a scary situation on a global level at that moment. And I was fortunate enough to get out. The military did not lock down the service until about 6 months later. And I skirted out 45 days after September 11th with a brand new baby boy. I had actually I had applied to be an officer in the Marines, and that moment made me realize I had a wife who was pregnant with our second child, and I said, you know what, maybe I'm just going to go do something different. I valued, my family, and the 6 years that I invested to be able to walk away at that point, all of a sudden became crystal clear to me, and I parted ways for that moment. That was just I think everybody knows where they were at that moment, and that's where I was at that moment.
And a lot of people that watch the show know that if I go stand on my front porch, I can see where the Twin Towers once stood. I'm right across. I'm only a mile away, and we know people that were in the buildings that day, and that was a day that actually turned my whole life and my whole career around. So now,
I lived in Somerset, and Freedom's about a mile from where that plane crashed in the field there. And, now it's a National Historic Site and everything. But before, it was literally just a hole in the ground. There was nothing there, 2002 when we moved out there. And we spent a lot of years out there. It's, it was a strange time.
So now, because I've interviewed now over 400 people for the show, whether they're Navy SEALs, whether Rangers, Delta Force, when a person gets out of the military, a lot of them, they don't have much to look forward to when they get out. They, even though we're all hardcore, we get used to getting paid on the 1st and the 15th, getting TRICARE, BAH, all that stuff. And like Sergeant Nick says from one of our groups, that when you step off base, the military doesn't really give a shit about you. Your phone stops ringing, and you pretty much become a man on an island. So what was your transitioning like, getting out of the military? Was it everything you thought it was going to be like?
I try not to let myself get, too invested in emotions and expectations. That's another lesson I've learned over life. I got to admit, I came out, I left the military with a bachelor's degree. I buckled down when I was in the Marines, and I got my 4-year degree in 2.5 years. I started going to evening school. I went to lunch school. I took every opportunity that I could. Granted, I was at a station unit on land, so I had extra time to go to college classes and all those sort of things. But um, that was big. There was a separation there, and I came out well far ahead, I think, of a lot of people, and I can admit that. I had a college degree. I had 6 years in the military. I was a sergeant, getting groomed for staff sergeant. I had leadership experience. We were running multi-million-dollar shops, and I had a job within 6 months. After separation from the military, I had one job with GE. I actually interviewed. They had given me the job, at least verbally, in Tennessee, and then 2 weeks later, GE Capital crashed, and the guy who offered me the job came back and said, "You know what, Seth? I can't give you that job anymore. Sorry." And so I found out, like, there's no guarantees in life at that moment, right? Like, all of a sudden, I was ready to pick my young family up with a newlywed wife and a baby newborn and a pregnant wife, mind you. We were getting ready to move to Tennessee, and this guy called me and said, "Sorry, I can't do it." Um, Took me a couple more months. I ended up at Siemens Medical, which is a GE competitor out of Germany. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. I started in with them and spent 14 years with them. So I had a small 6-month gap where I wasn't sure what was going on. And then all of a sudden, life was okay. It wasn't super stressful. So I probably had an easier road than some other folks. But it also came because I worked for it. Like, I put myself in a position where I didn't take no for an answer, whether that was college, whether that was GE, or whatever it was. And a lot of that comes with a military mindset, right? Just not giving up and consistently going in and winning. If you don't quit, you're going to win. Eventually, you may fail 98% of the time, but eventually you're going to come and win, and you're going to beat whatever hurdles in your way. So remember that basic training, right? Don't take no for an answer. Don't freaking quit. And I think sometimes we forget that because we don't have that environment around us anymore to constantly beat it into your head. Now you're responsible for remembering that on your own. So, that's an important thing.
And I love that. I've had Rich Davini on here. He wrote the book Attributes. I've had John McCaskill, ex-Navy SEAL commander. And I asked him, I said, what made you get through selection process? He says, because our thought process was either we're going to die or we're going to pass out, but we're not going to quit. And I think, anybody gets successful in life is just having that never quit attitude that, I may pass out, but I'm sure as hell not going to quit. So after being in the military, going to college, because my wife works for a big medical device company. I can't say who it is. I'm not about to get sued for the last 30 years.
Been in a company. All right.
So what is it? When did you start getting the entrepreneurial bug?
Well, so within, after leaving the military, not joining GE and later joining Siemens Medical, I've come to realize after the fact that I was more of an intrapreneur within Siemens Medical. On day one, I was responsible at that moment for a $250,000 medical imaging business. I was an ultrasound repairman. Although at that point 4D was a brand new technology 20 years ago, you were seeing commercials on the televisions and all that stuff. So we went around, we were fixing those machines. It was a probably $250,000 to $500,000 service business that I later grew within a 4-year period to about $5 million. So we came in and you show up with customer service and you tell people you care about them, your business is going to grow. That's just the human capital component of running a business. And then I quickly scaled up to management. I all of a sudden within, ultrasound is one imaging modality. Then I got promoted to management, and I was responsible for all of the imaging modalities: MR, CT, X-ray. I had 48 service employees working for me. And we had grown that business to 35 million, from 17.5 million to over 35 million in a 10-year period. And that, so my mindset was based on being more of an entrepreneur. How do I grow somebody else's business, and scale that, and move forward? And all of a sudden, somewhere along the way, I had always been an investor. When I was living in Japan at 19 years old, I remember I had a captain. I don't remember the guy's name. He was a captain who brought us, a whole bunch, 100 Marines, into a speech about financial investing and 401ks. And at that point, his big thing was IRAs. And I went out and I opened, like, that day, or within that week, I went down to Navy Federal and I opened up a Roth IRA. At that moment, it was so profound to me that the impact that investing could achieve versus working and collecting your weekly paycheck, your W-2 statement, and paying more taxes than anybody else does in this entire country at a percentage rate. You pay higher taxes as an employee than anybody else does, period. So when you start putting two and two together and you start realizing that the entire world is pointing to, or at least the entire US government and your tax structure is pointing you to be an entrepreneur to save money, at some point you got to wake up and realize that that's what you need to do to be successful. And if you continue on that same path, you're going to continue to achieve what everybody else has achieved. And I don't know, somewhere along the line, I just realized it's not what I wanted. I didn't want to keep working for Siemens. I had pet transportation businesses. I had online businesses. I had several businesses before I was able to actually replace, a $200,000 salary with Siemens and benefits and escape that proverbial golden handcuffs, if you will. I was working for a Fortune 25 company. Okay. I was doing okay. I was not struggling. But I wanted more out of life. And, somewhere along those lines, the years working 80-hour to 100-hour work weeks, with a young I have 4 kids now. And I was working 100-hour work weeks for Siemens. That came at a toll on my marriage, on my relationship with my kids, with my personal happiness, and my finances, right? Like, I always wanted more. I wanted to achieve more, but I didn't have time. And somewhere along the line, I just realized, it's like, Seth, you've got to jump with both feet. You can't be scattered. You can't do an 80-hour work week and then work 10 hours on this business. And it didn't work. And you had to jump in and you had to commit. So I don't exactly know when all those things lined up. But I think I had a boss that I really didn't agree with, is probably the friction point. We had a guy that Siemens had bought Bear, and he came in from a blood diagnostics business, which was very different from the imaging business. Anyway, he and I butted heads, and he was the boss and I was the employee. And I realized, like, why am I listening to some guy who's making 50 grand more than I am, simply because, he's my manager? Like, it just didn't make sense. Why am I putting up with this? My time is worth more than this stress. And I think that was the moment where it clicked for me. I was just like, you know what? I don't need this nonsense. This it's not worth it. I can do this on my own, and I can do it a whole lot better. And again, there's the confidence component with that. There's experience. You got to have confidence to be able to say, I don't need this $200,000 paycheck anymore. I can do better on my own.
Well, but one thing I love you talk about is being an entrepreneur, because, like, one of our friends, Gary Vaynerchuk, talks about, when his father's liquor store is 20 minutes from my house. And that's where I got to meet and hang out with him. But he said, I grew my father's business from 400 to 60 million dollars business. But the whole time I'm working 6 days a week. I drove a Jeep Grand Cherokee. And he said, eventually I walked away from that business with zero. I made no money. It's my father's business. It's not mine. But he learned so much, then he just had to replicate it when he went out on his own. So talk to us about, leaving that one job and then having to go out and replicate and reinvent and reimagine a successful business. What did you have to do, and what were some of your steps?
Well, I mean, years in the military and 14 years with Siemens, right? That's 20 years of firsthand experience running businesses. Granted, we don't have a financial component in the military, right? Like, I mean, you have budgets, but you're not really running a business in the sense that it has to be profitable. But you can still run equipment, you can still run schedules, you can still run people. That 6 years brings experience. The 14 years running budgets and being responsible for employees and all that, now that's another component. I'm summarizing that as 20 years of experience. So I was, I wasn't coming out of left field. I knew what I was doing at that point, and I had 20 years behind me to have the confidence to say, this is how you run a business. You've got to have marketing. You've got to have client testimonials, like all the components that go into that. I knew how to do it. All I had to do was repurpose and say, what value can I deliver? What problems can I solve for other people? And at that moment, I had spent 20 years investing. My investment income had already superseded my corporate income. And, I had that going for me. Now I decided to focus what my real passions were, which was investing and helping other people. That's a simple solution for me. Like, that, because I enjoy it. It's a passion for me. I love talking about investing. I love helping people and flipping the switch when they realize, oh my God, I can make a 6-figure income with investing, and I don't have to leverage my house in order to do it. Is it going to happen overnight? No, it's going to take you 3 years to make that happen for yourself. But you can spend 3 years working for Lowe's and become a manager at Lowe's too. Like, you probably have the confidence to go out and apply for a corporate job and do that. Well, by God, you have the abilities and the skill sets within yourself to do that for yourself and make a whole lot more money doing it for you than you do for Lowe's or any other corporate company on planet Earth. You do have these abilities, and the military has given it to you. You have it within you. If you've paid attention, if you've absorbed some of these values and this no quit attitude, you already have it within you. You just need to remind yourself that it is there and leverage it and use it consistently every single effing day.
And I totally agree with you. Now, I had Mr. Tony Watley on yesterday of 365 Driven, and he talks about how he grew his passion from cars to where he sold a business in 10 months and he became a multimillionaire at the age of 34. But he said, you got to put the work in. There's no, you can't half-ass it. Even if whether it's investing or learning, people don't. And I find veterans have a hard time investing in themselves, or they don't want to put in the work. You know what I mean?
That's a huge freaking fail. The military is willing to invest in you millions of dollars of equipment. You probably had more responsibility in the military than most people get in the civilian sector. Think about that for a moment. You had the full trust and respect, multi-million dollars of equipment. You were in charge. You had to. You're questioning yourself, and that's where you and I are gonna. And I'm speaking generally, not you personally, right? But if I hear that language fires me up. Those are fighting words for me. I will come at you, and I will make you remember that you have confidence and that you need to, invest in yourself. Like that kind of stuff fires me up, and I'll come at you.
I love it. So now, if somebody came to you, say, okay, Joe just retires out of the military, or gets out of the military, says, I want to start investing. What are the first steps you put that person through?
Yeah. Well, investing is an individual thing. You can talk to 100 different people and you're going to get 100 different answers on the best way to look at charts and strategies and risk and whatever. Everybody's got their own thing. Some people are day traders. They literally sit in front of a computer, 8 hours a day, and they're in and out of trades in a couple of hours. Maybe they close out a trade tomorrow, whatever. That's not me. I'm a swing trader. When I get into technology investments primarily, I look for long-term 10x plays. I'm not looking to make 5%, 20% in the stock market. That I don't even get excited unless I can make 300% on an investment. And to a lot of people, that probably sounds ridiculous, but in the technology investing sphere, those things happen repetitively over and over again in the markets. And that's what I'm looking for. But that's who I am and what I look for. So my questions always come back to you. Who are you? How much time can you invest in the markets? This is going to take time. It's not a buy something and forget about it. You have to manage it. You got to keep an eye on it. You know, if the CEO decides to change his roadmap, you need to pay attention to that because it's going to affect your investment. Can you forget about it and still win? Well, yeah, of course. But the odds are not. Like, you need to pay attention. It will take time to be an investor. Now, that's not to say you need to spend 80 hours a week on it, but an hour to 4 hours a week, yeah, you need to spend a little time. If you're going to be a day trader, it's going to be a lot more time, right? Like if you're going to be watching charts and doing that, you're going to spend 20 hours a week in front of the computer doing that. So the real question is always, who are you as an investor and what are your goals? How much money are you starting with? Are you starting with $100 or $100,000? Well, compounding works on both levels, but your strategy at $100 needs to be a little different than your strategy at $100,000, right? So who are you and what are the tools that you have at your disposal and how much risk are you willing to swallow? Can you look at a screen? Are you willing to invest $100,000 and let it go to zero? Okay, then now we can have that conversation about risk and your targets. If you can't handle that and you need to pay mortgage money with that, then that's a different conversation, right? So it always comes back to who you are, and that's a responsible answer. I know that's not the answer most people want, but that is, I believe, the right answer, and it's the responsible answer because it's attuned to the individual. And as investors, this 6 inches between your head is going to be the biggest problem you will ever face as an investor. The markets go down. Trump can tweet, but this right here is what's going to cause you your biggest problems.
And I love that. And I've had Miss Sharon Lechter on. She co-wrote, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and she's, real estate. So a lot of people are, into real estate. Now a lot of people are getting into crypto because I guess it's sexy, and a lot of people don't, like Mr. Buffett always talks about, he's always in it for the long game. Like you're talking about being in something for the long game, not just to get it, hit it and quit it. So talk to us about, not investing or investing in those sexy, shiny objects and not into the long game at all.
Well, here's the thing, right? And I love that you brought up Warren Buffett. You brought up several names. Tony Watley's an outstanding gentleman. I'm in his 365 group. Like, he delivers nothing but value. Yeah. Outstanding resource. And Gary Vaynerchuk, he's coming down to our event in Puerto Rico next month. He's a premium speaker for the Guardians. I work with the Guardians, helping them with their cryptocurrency and hedge fund and everything. So we've got Gary coming down next month to Puerto Rico. And Sharon, she actually at one point we had talked about having her do the book forward for my book for Prohibited Profits. We ended up working with Dave Meltzer at the end, but Sharon's another outstanding research, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I love it. Like, these mindsets are huge, and I bring all of them up again because you mentioned Warren Buffett, right? Like, all of these folks come at it from an investor mindset, and Warren Buffett is a perfect example because a lot of folks will sit there and say, yeah, he's stupid rich, right? Like, he's hundreds of billions of dollars. He's one of the richest men on the planet. But Warren Buffett also started at something like 14 years old. He started his first coin operated business. Like, he had a laundromat or something. And went out and took his allowance money, invested it into a cash flowing business that paid him money. And he just kept reinvesting that money. And, here he is at 90 years old with hundreds of billions of dollars. He started at 14 and he was a millionaire by like 30 or something, like early 30s. And I probably don't have exact, right? I'm guesstimating, but in a span of about 15 years, he became a millionaire because he had that mindset. And then somewhere in his 60s, he became a billionaire. And now in his 90s, he's lived a very long life. And now he's, compounding works at that level, whether you're 16, 14, or 90, whether you're making $100 as your starting investment account, or 100,000 or 100 million. Compounding works at all of those levels. So that's where the long-term investing is always going to pay out. If you come at it with a 10-year time horizon, you are almost always win. Short-term thinkers lose. The long-term mindset will win in almost every game. And that's, again, where I come back with the emotions, right? Like, yes, crypto is absolutely sexy. You can't turn on social media and not see 5 posts about it at this point. That's also a clear indicator that you should be following the herd. Like, these contrarian indicators are things you should be paying attention to. When the barber's talking about crypto, it's a little overhyped, and the market is going to be due for a correction too. Like, all of these things, you're talking about highs and lows and exuberance in the market. But if you can come at it from a 10-year time horizon, it doesn't matter. What I can tell you is, in crypto, nobody has ever lost on a crypto investment that has held it for more than 4 years. Period. End of story. Now, that may change in the future, right? Now, I'm only talking the last 12 years. But if you did not make a dumb mistake, like handing your crypto to somebody else who scammed you, if you forgot your passwords, if you did not make a user error and you held your coins for more than 4 years, you made out. It's that simple. Can you apply that to all markets? No. Can you apply that to a lot of markets? Absolutely. And any technology market that has won generally follows that pattern. Like, a lot of them will come out of the gates hard and fast, and then they will correct about 75%, 85% to the negative. That's what I mean by correction. It comes down, right? I mean, Amazon does this, Microsoft, Tesla, uh, the dot-com boom in the 90s. Like, this pattern repeats itself again. NFTs, the metaverse is now correcting from the overhype. This pattern repeats itself again and again and again. Now, that's where the conversation becomes interesting, because there are hundreds of stock companies that failed and didn't win, where there's other companies that did win. There's going to be cryptocurrencies that fail and don't win. There's going to be NFT projects that don't win. There's going to be metaverse projects that don't win. But the ones that do win are going to solve problems, and they're going to win big, right? So that's where we're looking at. We're looking. Who are the winners? Who is actually solving a real problem that needs to be fixed? And who is disrupting markets? Like, it's more than just a day trading component where we're looking at charts. You need to be looking at the 10-year horizon. Like, that's where I come at it. That's what I try to impose on my investors and my community. We don't win them all, and we don't expect to win them all. Anybody who thinks they're always going to win in investing is just delirious. But you don't have to win every trade to be a profitable investor. That's where the flip needs to, that's the focus, right? Like, if I can return 1,000% consistently on my investments, even if I lose 7 out of 10 of those investments, the 3 that do hit outperform my losses, like by a big margin. So it's a different kind of strategy to come at it, and that's where it comes back to who you are. Are you able to lose 7 out of 10 investments and have confidence and weigh this and weather the storm and ride out a 4 to 10-year investment? You're probably going to win. If you can't go through that if you can't handle a 60% drop, you're never going to see a 600% gain. Like that's the long-term vision that I try to impose on people. Is it the right way? Is it the only way? Of course not. But it works for me, and it works for a lot of people. But you have to have a different kind of mindset to win that way.
And I love that. But I think, a lot of people, they won't think twice about dropping $1,300 for a brand new iPhone. But if you say, all right,
you spend $1,300 on an iPhone because you can make $1.3 million with your iPhone. Like, that's a tool. I go out, I will buy every brand new iPhone at any price, the Pro Max, I do not care. $2,500 so that I can, you know, if you're not making money with your smartphone, you have a dumb phone.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
price is irrelevant to me. What you do is the important thing,
Yeah.
right?
But like I was saying, but they won't think twice in investing in a course, or investing in mentorship. Like, in order to be mentored by Mr. John Lee Dumas, which he's my mentor, his podcast does 1 million downloads a month. He's generating over 150,000 a month. I had to invest in him in order for him to invest back in me. But a lot of people won't think twice. They'll say, no, that's kind of steep to pay for mentorship or a mastermind or anything like that. So talk about that a little bit.
That's a broken mindset. That for me, I see that as a scarcity mindset. That's a glass is half empty kind of a mindset. It shouldn't. You should be asking, what can I do with this? What can I actually achieve with? Yes, it's a lot of money. I agree. $5,000 may be your entire life savings. It may be that. The question should be, well, what is that going to get me? What am I going to invest in this $5,000 to make certain that I can turn that $5,000 investment into 50,000 or 500,000 or 5 million? That, like, what am I going to invest in and show up myself to get out of that? Now you can, don't make those decisions based on an emotional whim, right? Don't go, make sure you do your homework. Make sure if you're going to invest in a mentor, make sure you're investing in somebody who has achieved what you want. Don't invest in a mentor that has not achieved what you want. If you want to achieve $1 million in crypto, you better hire somebody who has already achieved that. Because if you don't, that's a bad decision on your part. That person cannot teach you how to get to where they haven't been to, right? Like that, you need to have that first and foremost. If John Lee Dumas has obviously achieved that. I think he's the Entrepreneur on Fire guy, right? Yeah, he was down at our event. He was in Puerto Rico with us last month. I know John. I've read his books. He's an outstanding reader. He has achieved that, right? So I have no questions investing in a mentor who's done that. Yes, you shouldn't even you should be asking, how quickly can I get on your waiting list? How quickly can I be your next client, right? But you need to have the investment in yourself to show up, because there's two components. John Lee is going to show up and he's going to mentor you, and you need to show up and pay attention and shut up and listen to what he's saying. Don't show up and argue with John Lee. You're not paying him to do that. You should listen and take the nuggets of wisdom that he's going to give you. That's the difference. You need to have a winner's mindset, and that's it. I don't care about the price. The price is irrelevant to me. What are you going to get out of that price? That's what you need to be asking. If $5,000 is a problem, go apply for go get a loan. You don't pay interest on a loan. You don't pay taxes on a loan. If it's a wise investment, it's okay to take a loan. You don't pay interest and taxes on debt. So you can leverage that, which is, again, some things they teach you in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? Debt is what actually makes money in this world. That's why the government can print money, and the rest of the world's getting rich. Like, that's how the world actually works. It works on debt. So those things and put them in your favor, do it. But don't let that be an excuse. Do not let any of those things that came up be, a hurdle for you. Because I don't know. My mindset is just like, you're either going to find a way to win, or you're going to find a way to not win. You're going to find an excuse, right? Like, you either find a way or you find an excuse. There is no in between. This is black and white. If you want it bad enough, you're going to find a way to win. And if $5,000 is enough of a hurdle for you, then you're not going to do it. I don't know. I struggle with that, and I've learned, you can spend a lot of time trying to impose that on some people, and they just won't hear you. Sometimes the student has to be ready to hear that message, and not everybody is ready to hear that message for a variety of different reasons. But that's my mindset. That's how I look at that. And if you won't invest in yourself, why the hell should I invest in you, Richard?
Yeah.
You know,
And,
that's harsh, that's coarse, and that's military mindset. And a lot of people don't like that. I think your audience understands that kind of mindset. If you won't invest in yourself, why the hell should I invest in you? That's going to be when I look at you and you say you won't invest $5,000 in your own education. I'm sitting back here. I'm like, oh, okay, this guy won't even invest in himself. I want nothing to do with him. But do you understand the kind of energy that comes across from that mindset? It's a problem, and you are now standing in your own way, friends.
yep, and I love that. But also there's also people out there, like when I first started 3 years ago, I didn't have a pot to piss in, window to throw it out of. I didn't have money to invest, so I started to because I became acquainted, friends with Ed Milet and Mr. Russell Brunson. I couldn't afford to um, hire them or have them mentor me, so I would slip into their DMs. I would share all their posts. I would comment on them until they got sick of seeing my name. And then eventually Ed invited me to fly down to South Carolina and spend a day with him, but I couldn't go because I went blind and I had to have surgery. But I think sometimes people think, well, I can't afford a mentor, but there's some ways you can actually help out and create value for the mentors to where they might actually mentor you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple ways to skin a cat, right? I mean, you also don't necessarily have to spend $5,000 to hire a mentor. I mean, there are a lot of good resources out there on YouTube and social media, and online free resources. You don't have to empty the bank account to get good knowledge and good value. A lot of folks those people that are really successful at that level are just givers. You have to be a giver, and they understand the value of delivering true value to the audience, and building a community around that. Like, that's what you really see successful people do. People that struggle in life tend to be takers. They'll ask you 20 questions and they'll never hire you. They're just they'll constantly take. Somebody like that who shows up in your feed and gives and supports the community, you pay attention to those things. That's the values that you want in your group. So those people who show up and reflect those values, like yourself, they stand out. Like that's the way to do it. I love that. That's being a go-giver.
Now, like I said, like one of my friends, she introduced me to Steve Sims. I had him on the show. And he said, a lot of people, they want to come and meet me, but they can't afford to come meet me, because of, who he is. He said, but nobody's coming up and asking, can I help set up the venue? Can I help take out the garbage? And he said the person that's taking out the garbage is still getting the same information than the person that's sitting in the seats, and they're not paying $5,000 to see me. So, like you said, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And by the way, I love Mr. Dave Meltzer. I think I love him. He just seems such a down to earth dude. And so he wrote the foreword to your book. So talk about your book a little bit and why you wrote your book.
Yeah, thank you. Prohibited Profits. Yeah. Dave resonates with me on a deep level. I mean, he's a family man. He understands the value component and being a go-giver. And I love Dave. He's coming to Puerto Rico as well. We'll be down there doing some podcast stuff with him. So the book Prohibited Profits. Yeah, now you're talking. This is where we try to scale out, right? Here I am wearing my crypto shirt and emptying my savings into investments in crypto. But the book really focuses on a lot of these historical patterns that happen in the markets. There was a time 100 years ago where alcohol prohibition was a thing. The government said alcohol is bad and you're now a criminal. And didn't necessarily stop anybody from drinking alcohol. It actually spawned an entire economic revolution of gangsters and bathtub gin and, the whole bootlegging industry that happened. And that's what laws tend to do. You don't solve a problem, you just create a bigger problem. But that happened, right? And all of a sudden the government realized, well, maybe we can't actually win this war on alcohol. Maybe we're just smarter to tax these people. And then they regressed. And, so the people who paid attention to government and said, you know what, I'm going to step out of this and have nothing to do with alcohol, had generational wealth opportunities taken away from them. Because the people who said, forget you, I'm going to continue to do this, and then stayed in the shadows and started an alcohol business like, Coors and Budweiser, are now sitting on generational wealth. Marijuana prohibition was the thing in the 30s, and it may not have been for the right reasons, but it did happen in this country. And, we still have people that are sitting in jail for marijuana while the government is collecting billions and billions of dollars in tax revenue. Right or wrong or different, we can go down that rabbit hole, but that pattern happened in the markets, and it's still occurring as we speak. Gold was actually outlawed in the markets at one point. It was illegal for people to own gold coins or gold at all. Some people turned in their gold and some people did not. The people who did not came out financially ahead when that law was reversed, and you are no longer a criminal to own gold in this country. We're now in a psilocybin revolution, medical magic mushrooms.
Yep.
2 states have legalized medical magic mushrooms, and I think that is going to be the next trillion-dollar industry. And yes, I said trillion with a T. It is a $35 billion industry at the moment. And mathematically, if you scale out and think about what I just said, that's the same exact pattern that happened with Bitcoin. We had $1 billion economy that has grown to $1 trillion economy. That's why so many people have made a lot of money. Is that going to happen in psilocybin? Yes, I think it will. Is Bitcoin and blockchain the end all be all? No, of course not. There's going to be something else. Digital dollars have been around since like what, 1960s, I think, like was the first time ATMs came into existence. Like we're talking about a 60-year-old technology. Digital dollars are nothing new. We've had PayPal and Venmo and all these things for a long time. The difference with Bitcoin and the real separator is the blockchain itself, is that decentralized component that has never existed before in modern human history. That's the real revolution and the difference, that Bitcoin brought to the table 12 years ago. A lot of folks, if you're really in the crypto market, like Bitcoin is a boomer coin at this point. Like the technology is 12 years old. It's not even relevant at a lot of levels at this point, because it takes 20 minutes for a transaction to close. You can't use it in your practical day-to-day life. You can't go to the grocery store and buy $100 worth of groceries or $200 today with Bitcoin, because the little old lady is going to be shooting daggers in the back of your head with her eyeballs. She ain't gonna wait 20 minutes, right? Like that's it just doesn't work that way. There's a lot better opportunities from a technology investor standpoint that just vastly outperform Bitcoin. It's silly at this point. So I'm not investing in Bitcoin 2.0. We're looking for the next technology revolution. Like what's going to be the answer 10 years from now when everybody's talking about quantum computers being the biggest threat to your bank account on the planet, which isn't even a conversation today, but 10 to 15, 20 years from now, that's going to be a real conversation, because the threat isn't going to be to your Bitcoin. There's a whole lot more money sitting in your bank accounts than there is in Bitcoin, right? Like, that's a quintillion-dollar target, not a trillion-dollar target. They're coming for your bank account, not for your Bitcoin. Anyway, like what's going to be the problem and the disruptor 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now? Like technology just keeps rolling. It's never going to stop as long as humans advance. That is going to be a moving target. So what's next? You can't say, well, I bought Bitcoin and that's my retirement fund. Well, you're naive. You have to keep moving with the times. You have to keep investing, right? Like you got to keep growing as a human. whether you're working at Lowe's or being an investor or just learning from the Vertical Momentum podcast. You have to keep growing and expanding. Otherwise, the world is moving past you.
Now, as we're listening to this, I think it's the 30th, I think, of the month. As we know, Ukraine is getting bombed. Russian has been being sanctioned, and they're talking about how, some of the oligarchs, they can't use their debit cards. They can't use to get their credit cards. So they're talking about how crypto is growing, and it's become more on the main stage of what the possibilities of crypto are, considering these people can't get to their physical money, correct?
I just want to take a second to say thank you for our service members, active duty, retired, everybody. Thank you. That's a disastrous situation in the Ukraine, and I have two military children myself, and I just want to say thank you. Somebody stands up and raises their hand deserves to be respected and thanked. You were putting yourself in harm's way, and so thank you for that. A lot of folks look at Bitcoin as like, well, that's solving problems in Africa, right? With the Zimbabwean government and these tyrant regimes. Well, guess what? No, it's not. It's solving problems today in the real world, whether that's the Ukraine, Russia, or the Canadian government, which came out and tried to stop GoFundMe for a protest. If that's not a tyrannical move from a first world government, I don't know what is, friends. My point is that Bitcoin is solving real world problems in first world countries. Not every government is honest, and America has a history of not always being on the right side of things too. And if you're a veteran, you probably know a little history, and you know that. And that's why we all have our Second Amendment rights, right? Because we should not trust any government. And if you trust any government, it's a recipe for failure. Whether you're Russia, the Ukraine, the US, or Canada, I don't care. Australia is going through their own problems on the other side of the planet. Do not trust any governments. A lot of that is why we've raised our hand and we carry guns, because we understand those important rights that we carry, and the government should not always be trusted. People are greedy at the end of the day. But that is solving a real world problem right now, right here today. Whether you decide one side of government or the other, that solves a problem. And that's what has never existed before. That's what people need to really, truly understand. What makes Bitcoin and blockchain different is we have removed that centralized component. Like that's really what government is, a centralized entity, right? Your bank is a centralized entity. All of your money sits on ones and zeros at somebody's Excel spreadsheet, behind that computer screen. They have all the power. Same thing with Coinbase. They're a centralized exchange that handles your Bitcoin money. Your accountant is a centralized, you write them a couple $100 check to do your taxes every year, and you hope they're doing it right. Yes, they sign on the dotted line to say, I did the taxes for Richard and he paid me money. But at the end of, that's one problem that can go wrong. Either that person can make a mistake, they can pencil whip it and not actually do the job, right? I mean, that's happened. There's been situations where people are just psychopaths, Richard, and they're out for themselves, and they will take advantage of you and the other party if they can, right? I mean, those things happen. It's the exception and not the norm, but it does happen. And it's a real risk when you're talking any centralized anything, whether it's government, your money, whatever, centralized. Like there's one point of failure. That's what centralized means, right? So that's what blockchain does. It moves that one focal center. How many times have you gotten an email that says, very sorry, we have to let you know, but your important social security number has been compromised because our database has been hacked? How many times have you gotten that email in the last 20 years? Can you even count that high? I can't.
Nope.
I can't. I don't even think I could be. That number is easily 100 times. And
Yep.
I don't even second guess myself. I've even gotten that from the US military. The U.S. military, shortly after getting out in 2001, I forget, it was like that, 2002, 2003, they emailed me and said, our database has been hacked by database hackers, and we're very sorry. This is what you need to do to protect yours. I've been getting those emails for 20 damn years. And I know everybody in the Vertical Momentum podcast has gotten at least 20 of them, right? Even if you're 18 years old and you're young, you've probably gotten that email. That's a problem. That is a real problem in today, 2022. And that has been a real problem since computers have been around, right? So that's what the decentralized component solves in this real world, that we all live in with computers and these smartphones. Removing that centralized point of failure is where we're going to move forward as a human population, as mankind, in technology and all of the human element. Because it solves problems for the struggling tribes in Zimbabwe. It solves problems for protesters in Canada, and it solves problems for us here in America with our taxes and our bank accounts. Like, is it the perfect thing? No, it's not. It's not perfect. It is not a perfect solution, but it is the most near perfect solution in the world of finance that we have right now today. And a lot of folks we're military minded folks, right? Like, that's your target audience. If you're familiar with the Byzantine generals problem, where you need to attack a city, like 4 generals need to all agree at the same exact time on when to attack a city, how are they going to communicate with each other? Well, we've got secret handshakes, and we've got blue check marks, and we've got encrypted messages, and we can tie messages to a pigeon leg and fly it out, how it works, right? Like, how are these folks communicating to trust each other? Well, blockchain solves that problem. We don't have that problem. The Byzantine generals problem has been solved in the world of finance. So if you can come at that from a military mindset and just scale it back and say, okay, well, now we're talking about finances. How do we all communicate in finances so that 1 million computers all agree that Seth sent Richard 1 Bitcoin, and my Bitcoin account is -1 and your Bitcoin account is +1 now? You and I didn't agree to that, Richard. We call it trustless, but the fact of the matter is that the more people who participate in the network, the stronger it becomes and the more trusted it becomes. That's the problems we're solving for the generals in that scenario. When are we all going to attack? Or when do we all agree that Seth sent Richard 1 Bitcoin? That central point of failure is eliminated, and that's really what needs to be imposed on people. Like, that's really the revolution that has taken place. It's not digital money. Digital money's been around for 60 years. That's not it. It's third level accounting, which has never existed before. Second level accounting is where we go to our accountant and we write that guy a check and he does our taxes. That's the central point. First level accounting is where you and I shake hands and we agree, I'm going to pay you $100 and I'm going to do a job for you or perform a service. But if you disagree and I disagree, we can have a problem. Whether it's your side or my side, humans disagree. Humans have problems. That's first level accounting. Second level accounting is we bring a mediator. We have a third party. Well, triple level accounting is we have no mediator. We trust everybody in our network. That's the revolution. So,
all right. So then I have a question, because now we're winding down, but if anybody ever stayed up past 3 a.m., now you start seeing all these commercials for all these apps for, you can, whether it's Robinhood, whether it's whatever they are, you can buy crypto on an app. So where do you go to buy, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, where do you go to buy reputable and get involved in a company that's reputable instead of just one of these fly by night 3 a.m. infomercials?
Robinhood is a reputable company, but you also need to understand that if you are not paying them, you are the product. It's the same thing with social media, right? Like, people give it to you for free, but they're monitoring your data. You're getting blasted with ads, and you even talk about purple gum, great bubble gum on your phone. Next thing you know, you're going to end up with 3 advertisements for great bubble gum, right? You are the
Yep.
product. So people don't understand that with Robinhood. They say, well, I can go out and buy crypto and it's free. I don't have to pay any fees. What you're not looking at is what we as investors pay very close attention to, which is our spreads. And a spread basically comes in and says, you're not actually profitable in that trade until you hit point X. And typically, you know, if you bought Bitcoin at $47,200 on Robinhood, you don't actually start to make money until $47,500. That's the difference, you know, like that's what they call a spread. And that's how Robinhood makes their money, because if you're not profitable and something goes the other way, now they're making money. Like you're the product. The problem with Robinhood is, at least this may have changed, and I think it did change. But when they first came out, they were not actually selling crypto at all. They were selling derivatives of crypto, which is not crypto, which is you know, it's a derivative. It's not a real. It's the same thing like in the stock market. When you go and you buy stocks, nobody's mailing you a stock certificate. You're holding derivatives of stocks, so you don't really own it. And people need to understand. So the problem with that, in particular with crypto, is because you can't withdraw that Bitcoin. If you don't own it, you just don't own it. Like there's a first rule of crypto is not your keys, not your cheese. Not your keys, not your money, not your keys, not your crypto. It means you don't own it, brother. If your money's on Coinbase, you don't own squat. If your money is sitting on Robinhood, you don't own a darn thing. They have the keys to your kingdom. Now, is Coinbase trusted? Yeah, I mean, they're $1 billion company. They're not going anywhere. But I can tell you, you know, I've had I believe in teaching the younger generations. I have 4 kids, and I spend a lot of time teaching finances to them. My adult children who are military now, you know, years ago, they had Coinbase accounts at 15 and 16. And all of a sudden, you know, we got an email one day that said, we're closing your account. We don't want your business anymore. Come get your Bitcoin. And we're sitting there scratching our heads going, you know, like, why? What did we do wrong? What happened? And we later figured out they were minors. They were under 18, and Coinbase didn't do business with minors. Do I agree with that? No. My point is, they had the keys to the kingdom, and they shut the accounts down and said, you don't have a Coinbase account. They're a centralized one point of failure, right? And that's the same thing with Robinhood, with Coinbase, with Binance. Any of these centralized exchanges, you don't own it. I'm gonna give you a hard pill to swallow. You don't own it. That's where I come at it from a cold storage. If you're going to be a real crypto guy, and I'm looking around because I don't actually have one of my wallets sitting here on the desk right now, but Ledger and Trezor are probably the 2 absolute best cold storage device wallets. If you're really going to get into crypto and you're going to start investing like more than $5,000, you need to take this seriously and get yourself cold storage. And that means, in cold storage is where you own the keys to your kingdom. You actually have to write down a 12-word password and store it somewhere safe and take responsibility for having the keys to your crypto. That's the best way to own it, you know, because there's enough horror stories out there. How many accounts have been hacked, Richard? You know, like most people probably wouldn't keep 50 grand sitting in a sock drawer at home, right? For fear of the maid, for fear of just a random burglar coming into your house and getting lucky. You know, for a lot of reasons, most people don't keep that kind of money in their sock drawer at home. That I think about that when you're holding crypto in somebody else's exchange. We've all gotten these database breach emails, right? I mean, 100 of them in 20 years I can think of without even stressing about it. If somebody gets the keys to your password keys to your Coinbase account, they're going to clean you out. And there is nobody you can call to say, I made a boo-boo and I need help. There is nobody on planet Earth that can help you at that point. So, you know, there's pros and cons to centralized exchanges. It's nice if you do have a problem and you forget your password, you can call these guys and you can fill out a lost password form and they'll help you out. In 24 hours, you'll have access back to your account. But if somehow somebody else gets a hold of your passwords and cleans out your Coinbase account, you're done. You might as well start over. And I have an example that I want to share. That's humbling for me. And this is why I pound the desk so hard. Like, please hear me, okay? And I want to come at this from a place of genuine experience and having to learn the hard way, which has been a long story of my life. But the reason that I can say that is because, there is an exchange, Cryptopia. For anybody who's actually really been into crypto for a while, you may have heard the story about Cryptopia in 2018. They were the #1 crypto exchange in New Zealand at that time. Like they were not a small rinky-dink scam website. Okay, this was I don't know if they were billion, but they were at least hundreds of millions of dollars of crypto at that point. And they got hacked. They lost, I forget the number. It was hundreds of million, like $126 million. Well, Richard, $750,000 of that 176 million was my money. I lost $750,000 in Ethereum in the Cryptopia hack because I had Ethereum sitting on that exchange. My strategy at that point was hard forks. I was going after hard forks, and Ethereum was having a hard fork. So I was trying to turn my 750K into 1.15 million at that point. And the hackers took over, and I lost everything that was on that exchange, and I had to start over. And, I went through 3 weeks of mental trauma, and I can laugh about this now because I've come out the other side, but I was an absolute train wreck after losing $750,000 of crypto in literally overnight. Like I was wrecked. I think I spent 3 weeks in depression. Honestly, I did. I really, really did. I didn't call anybody. I didn't talk to anybody. I had at that point clients that were calling me, and I just stopped communicating because it really messed with my head. And I had to learn a hard damn lesson. And that, Richard, is the hard damn lesson that I want everybody to hear. Do not trust any centralized components, whether it's Coinbase, whether it's Robinhood, or anybody else. You need to take responsibility for your money. And that was the mistake I made. I made a poor decision. I don't think the risks were very high. I don't think I made a super bad decision. But even the risk of 1% of losing all my money, it punched me right in the damn nose. And I don't want you to be that guy. Like my goal is for all my clients to have $750,000 of crypto. I have clients that have made over $10 million in crypto at this point, and I pound this on the desk with them. It's very important that you take responsibility for your crypto. So if there's nothing else that you get out of this today, please learn the hard lesson that Seth had to learn in losing $750,000 by trusting a centralized exchange. It's a massive failure in your strategy if you're doing it.
So now, last 2 questions I have. How do we find you? How can we get your book? How do we support your mission?
I'm not looking for support. I'm looking to help others not make the mistakes that I made. That's really with the approach that I come at it. Please, you don't have to hire me. There are other crypto guys that have done much better than I have. Okay. I mean, they're the twins that run Gemini are billion-dollar crypto investors. I mean, a lot of people have done much better than I have. I am not an absolute expert. I've done extremely well. I've done better than most. But if you just want to watch me on social media and follow me, I will pound your brain with more information than you probably ever cared to know. And I'll make your eyes roll in the back of your head. But after, a few months of following me, you're going to have eaten actually an entire elephant. So, I'm happy to have you follow me. You can hit me on all the social media channels. SethManiscalco.com is my main personal website. We talk about the hedge funds that we manage and own. We've got another one launching, a Series 3, hopefully here in September, which will be an accredited-only $100 million fund. And, we just talked about my personal experience with that. CryptoWealthCoach.co is my business website. We focus primarily on, obviously, cryptocurrency investments there and the penny altcoin market. If you want to have your mind blown on some of that stuff and the new problems that we're solving in technology that Bitcoin isn't even anywhere near today, that's the group for you there. And of course, the book is Prohibited Profits. Rob Cicades is my guy. I love Rob. I love art. And Rob did the cover for the book. So we've added some components from his art on the website, and privativeprofits.com. You can find us there. We're on Amazon and Kindle. If you're a Kindle person, you can find us there too. The only benefit that I really like to point out with people, if you go to Prohibited Profits, I will give you a free 30-day membership to Crypto Wealth Coach. So if you just want to try it out, see what we talk about, I normally charge $147 just to be a member of that group. On day 29, if you want to cancel, you go for it. We'll have no harm, no foul, no hard feelings, nothing at all. So that's the benefit I promote, versus Amazon's not going to give that to you. If you buy from the website, I'll make sure you get that.
I love it. Okay, last question I have. Last month I had one of the Iron Chefs on, Simon Majumdar, and he was talking about how, over the last 2 years since we've lost over 100,000 restaurants went out of business. And so we have a lot of people driving Uber, DoorDash, just trying to put food on the table. So, if you ask the average American to do something in 7 days, they're pretty much never going to get to it. But if somebody's listening to our show right now and we ask them to take an actionable step in the next 24 hours, they're more likely to do it. So if somebody's out there right now listening to our show and say they have $500 in their wallet that they're willing to invest to start off, what is something they can do in the next 24 hours to start to maybe dip their toe into the investment without losing their shirts?
There's so many different ways to approach that. I think Bitcoin is probably one of the safest investments out there. I think Bitcoin will continue to appreciate at about 200% a year for the next 10 years. And that's going to be an average, mind you. Okay. It's going to be, negative 30% some years, and it's going to be 400% on another year. So we're your average over the next 10 years. I would take $100 of that $500 and go buy yourself a ledger.com, Trezor. These are the cold storage devices I mentioned, so that you have sovereignty of your money. Take 20% of that $500 budget and buy it direct from the website. Don't buy it from anybody else. Don't buy it off of eBay. Buy a manufacturer sealed wallet that nobody has ever touched. And then go spend the other $400 on Bitcoin. Like if that's where you're at, go move it to your cold storage wallet and forget about it for a good long while. I think that $500 will probably be worth $5,000 to $10,000 or more in that time, for many, many reasons. But if you're looking for a good, safe investment that will continue to appreciate and you can have ownership of your money, I think that's a good, smart play. It's simple, it's easy, and you can absolutely accomplish that in the next 24 hours, hands down. Well, okay, maybe not the wallet part. That may take 2 weeks to doorstep. But you can buy the Bitcoin, and then once you have that on your doorstep, it takes 20 minutes to move that money the first time. It'll take you 2 minutes every time after that.
I love it. So guys, make sure that you follow Seth. He's got an amazing account on LinkedIn. He is always providing value. Make sure you pick up his book. I want to thank our sponsors, Kurt Balish. I love you, brother. You're an amazing person. And I want to thank you for everything you do. You also help veterans. So I just want to say thank you. Guys, if you want the same thing that I've been sipping on through this whole time, if you want this coffee, make sure you write coffee in the comments. We're giving it away. And we're also going to invite you to join our elite newsletter, where every Thursday morning you're going to get interviews like this dropped right into your inbox. So you're getting interviews from today's thought leaders and game changers for free. Seth, brother, I'm so grateful. I apologize for my voice, but I'm so thankful and grateful for your friendship most of all.
How much is the coffee, Richard? I received that. Thank you. And I reciprocate it, brother.
It's like $34, but we're also having it to where people can, when they do buy it, I forgot to mention this because everything I do is I'm paying it forward. Anybody that buys any of my products.
And I want you to give 11 of them away, please, sir.
Wow.
I know you want one away. Let's do 11.
Wow. Thank you. 22% of my anything that I make goes to help Project Die Hard, helping veterans and homelessness. So everything I make, money goes back to helping the veterans. So I just want to say that, guys. So, guys, make sure you check out Seth. Check out his issue in Shift Magazine. Amazing, amazing. And he looks so handsome in the cover, by the way. But I just wanted to say, Seth, thank you for being in my inner circle.
Thank you, Richard. And thank you to the Vertical Momentum podcast audience for your time today, especially. Thank you very much, guys. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here, and I look forward to growing with you.
And guys, remember, vertical momentum. The only way to go is but up. All right, guys, I'll catch you on the flip.